So the topic of my keynote are the specifics of dynamics of entropy in socio-economic systems. Colleagues, can you hear me? Colleagues, just confirm whether you can hear me. Yes, we can. So this keynote is the continuation of the study which were presented by me during the symposium in autumn last year. So in order to analyze the dynamics of entropy of socio-economic systems, first of all, we need to look at the properties of those socio-economic systems which influence the entropy. And the first property is that socio-economic systems, they are dissipative living systems, and means there's a continuous movement of energy, substance and information. There's continuous exchange with the environment. And second property is the complexity of those systems. They're composed of many elements with a lot of connections between those. And most importantly, is that the basis of socio-economic systems are people, and the behavior of those people only add to the complexity of those systems. Third property, the socio-economic systems are a type of hierarchical systems. So they are like a matryoshka doll. One is inserted inside of the other. So they grow in complexity and scale. And the fourth property, they differ in the ways of the information is transferred, unlike genes apart from genes in living nations, socioeconomic natures. Another element is culture, and institutions are an important element of that. And the fifth property is that these systems, they accumulate quickly. They use an external stock as goods and resources, and ultimately that's universal equivalent money. Next one, the next question, which is also important, complicated, is the dynamics of what entropy are we talking about. Here, we should say that there's a lot of approach, and the approach is not the same to understand the entropy. So I've decided to look into the original sources. And there are two main types of entropy. And so there's dynamic one and Boltzmann, and the information one, Shannon's. And based on that, we can use analogs. It's clear that direct analogs do not work with economic systems. We can still draw some analog. The analog of thermodynamic entropy, we can, and an analog of information entropy, that's the future state, or the entropy of the future, the measure of uncertainty of the future. So here on the graph, what you see is the dynamics of the current entropy. And on the graph, you see a certain critical level, and when this level is reached, a socio-economic system faces death or decay. So if it's individuum, it's death. If it's small, a complex system, then it's a decomposition. So the system does not let the achievement of this level. So when the critical level is reached, actions are taken to move away from this critical level, and you have this tooth-like curve. Speaking about the future, this entropy is correlated not as rigid as current entropy, and is controlled from two sides. So if the current entropy is controlled from the top, the entropy of the future is controlled from both top and bottom. Why? Because if the upper limit is broken, exceeded, then there's entropy of choice, and the economic actor, economic agent, does not have the opportunity to choose the complexity of making a decision. And so he cannot simply choose from the available options, and vice versa. In case the entropy of the future drops below a certain level, then the economic actor has a situation of no choice, so the only option, and it can choose it. So the entropy of the future fluctuates within this range between maximum and minimum. And unlike the existing current entropy, when either limit is exceeded, it does not threaten the decay of the system. It's not as critical as with the existing entropy. So if we have two entropies existing in parallel, what does it result in? It results in the dichotomy of entropies in economy. So what does it mean? It means that economic actor needs to switch. And in case, first of all, in case the level of current entropy is far from the critical one, then it switches to the control of the level of the entropy of the future. So they have time and resources in order to think about their future. Next, apart from these two main types, the dichotomy of entropy also has other forms. In particular, we can differentiate between entropy in terms of level and scale in socioeconomic system. If we talk about individual entropy or personal entropy, as we call it, in this case, an individual takes care about themselves. But there are situations when an individual is a manager of a system of a higher order. So, for example, manager of an enterprise, manager of a state. And in this case, his sphere of interest includes monitoring the level of public entropy. So entropy of a group, of a family, of a company, enterprise, a sector, or the entire state. Then there's a place for dichotomy here, because if an individual is the manager, they need to switch between personal entropy when they take care about themselves and the public entropy when they're in charge of a business, state. Another problem with using entropy in economy is that people cannot perceive entropy directly, since we don't have a special organ for that. So it can be perceived indirectly through feelings. So we need to differentiate the entropy by the level of objectivity. There is objective entropy. This is a real lot or dissipation of energy or real uncertainty of the future, which doesn't depend on how you feel. And there's subjective entropy. So what is felt by the individual using the sensory organs through thoughts and feelings. And they can coincide when the individual is rational enough and they perceive the level of entropy objectively, but in most cases, as we know, individuals are irrational, and so the subjective entropy can differ considerably from the objective one. So this is the matrix of the entropy of economic systems based on the so we have the sign by a time and the arrow of time, thus the entropy of the future, and there is a current economic system, and by the level of subjectivity, it can be objective, subjective. As a result, we get 8 types of entropy, depending on the type of combination of those characteristics. So how does entropy present itself within the socioeconomic systems? That presentation can be different. Here, the table gives the examples of how entropy presents itself and what does it impact on. For example, if we take personal objective current entropy, so that's the entropy of a separate subject, the entropy of the existing state, this is subjective entropy. This is its real level. And it presents itself in the duration of life, and the probability of life and death, or it impacts the life and health of a person. So, in accordance with this table, we can see that humankind, and economics has produced quite a lot of indicators which can be used to assess the level and dynamics of entropy. So we have those indicators already. Now to the specifics of entropy in socioeconomic systems. The first specifics is connected with the second law of thermodynamics, because socioeconomic systems, they're living systems, so they don't have this law, which is typical for non-living systems. There is no continuous growth of entropy. What's possible is the local reduction in entropy and deviation to the external environment. The second specific here is that the socioeconomic system, its foundation is human being, and it means it's the only system at the level of entropy of which can be within which you can control these minds. And the third specific feature here is that apart from entropy, what becomes possible is the negentropy. So resource and here money, these are the values which are used to control the level of entropy in future. The fourth specific part here is that information entropy starts playing a role, and even in living systems, information entropy doesn't play that role. And socioeconomic systems, information entropy is a result of the activity of a person. The fifth is that we can control the level of socioeconomic systems, and for that you require a special system of sub-control. So that's management organizations, the state, governments in the countries. And the sixth specific feature is that within the economics, entropy can go down. So it dissipates into the environment through the pollution and emissions and social domain, because people experience stress, but that makes the economy richer. And as I've said, there are special systems of administration. Individuals can control the personal level of entropy, subjective, the current entropy, and the entropy of the future. All the methods to regulate entropy can be grouped into 4 groups. First, the mechanisms to regulate own objective entropy, and these can be mechanisms to reduce it. A person can lead a healthy lifestyle, and it can be used to increase it. For example, bad habits, they increase our existing entropy. The second group, there's a mechanisms of horizontal transfer of objective entropy between socioeconomic systems. So one socioeconomic systems, they can transfer their entropy into other socioeconomic systems. In particular, there's an example here, the export of revolutions. We know about color revolutions. When one country exports this entropy into other countries, then there are mechanisms of cross-transfer of objective entropies to socioeconomic systems. That's when one type of entropy can influence a different type of entropy. For example, a personal current entropy, how can it be reduced? It can be reduced by increasing a personal entropy of the future, for example, through such mechanisms as downshifting. When an individual decides to take a break, but the existing entropy goes down, but the entropy of the current entropy reduces, but the entropy of the future increases. And the final one, the mechanisms of external impact on subjective and objective entropy of socioeconomic systems. And we are the witnesses of such action when the socioeconomic system of Russia, and there are certain actions aimed at it, sanctions. When the level of entropy in the country is increased on purpose, both objective entropy and subjective entropy, and that's done through the actions of the socioeconomic systems, the system of other countries. And in conclusion, and the use of entropy approach in socioeconomic systems is quite promising. And in order for this approach to become scientific and for it to yield result and ensure synthesis of different approaches and schools, we need to overcome a number of disadvantages. First, stop presenting economic systems as closed economic systems which are in balance with maximum thermodynamic entropy. I've seen a lot of work where was an attempt to study economic systems like that, but from the practical point of view, it doesn't give anything, because as a maximum, you can consider it as an ideal case. So real economy will never achieve a state like that. And we need to start consider the level and dynamic of entropy not only in limit states and modes of developing economic systems, but during transition conditions and modes. And we shouldn't limit ourselves studying only one type of entropy of economic systems. And we need to start studying the interconnection objective level and domain of entropy with subjective assessment. And we need to start studying the objective level. And like I said, people are irrational, and quite often they see the level of entropy not the way it is. And this lag for difference between subjective and objective level, well, it will be interesting to study that, to understand that connection. This is it from me. Thank you.